Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Well, here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening, and welcome to Prime Time Sports. Well, I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and I have a lot to talk about today. We're going back down the information highway. As bad as it was last Monday and Tuesday, it was just as good this week. We'll get to that in a moment, but I can't start the show without talking about what a crazy weekend it's been across the political and sports landscape. You don't really want to get into this kind of stuff, but sometimes you have to. I never thought I'd hear the words anthem and taking a knee so much put together. It is definitely a divide in this country where people are either on one side or the other. But it all started Friday when our president, Donald J. Trump, well, he implored NFL owners that they should fire all those SOBs who kneel for the anthem. And that caused a stir among not just the players, but the coaches, the owners alike. The NFL players across the league did what you expect them to do. Many of them, over 200, protested by kneeling. And even last night, and before the anthem, and I thought the Cowboys did a pretty cool thing, Jerry Jones and them kneeled, but not during the anthem, not with the flag involved. But whatever way you do it, I think we should just listen to each side before just drawing this chasm. But by the way, the NFL players, like I said, they all protested. It all started, of course, last year with Colin Kaepernick. He was doing it for social injustice, oppression, and police brutality. He was trying to make a statement. And the more that this is going on, hey, the more people are respecting Colin Kaepernick. I know there's a bunch of you out there that still do not like him at all. But wherever you stand on this topic, we as Americans, well, we should at least just listen to the other side. Sometimes you need to put yourself in the other person's shoes before you decide what's going on in their life and what they should do. Hey, by the way, the Steelers as a team, they decided to stay in the locker room. And one guy, well, you can't blame him for this, Alejandro Villanueva, whatever side you're on. This guy, the offensive lineman for the Steelers, he's an Army Ranger, a West Point graduate, 3 tours in in Afghanistan. And this guy, because of his, I would say, courageous moment to step out and do it by himself, well, he is now the best-selling jersey in the NFL. That 78 Steelers jersey is the best-selling in the NFL since Sunday. So a lot of people are glad to see what he did, and maybe some others aren't. Hey, by the way, it's not just football that's affected. Steph Curry and Trump, well, they've had a tete-a-tete going for the last few days. Curry said, hey, I don't really know if I really want to go to this White House. I've already been there with Barack Obama, somebody he respects. Well, Trump rescinded the invite. And these two have been kind of going back and forth. And LeBron James came out and defended his NBA foe. And he called Trump a bum. And, you know, this just got heated even more and more yesterday during the press conference, as you see there. LeBron James, the number 1 player in the NBA by most people's standards, he went off on our president. And let me say this. We're already a divided country, and the chasm seems to be getting wider and wider. And the one thing I just implore everyone to do is just please listen to your fellow man. I mean, we all want to take one side, But why don't you just take the time to listen to what the other side's saying, and maybe we can all understand a little bit better. Hey, by the way, Oakland A's catcher Bruce Maxwell, well, he became the first Major League Baseball player ever to kneel during a national anthem. And if you heard him talk about it after, you know what? You would understand that this guy's fighting a cause too, and I get it. Hey, by the way, I don't necessarily say I'm for it or against it. By the way, just listen to your fellow man, and you know what? The world will be a better place. Hey, by the way, do you remember the old days, back in the 90s, when taking a knee meant something totally different? Like our girl Nancy Kerrigan, why me? That's not too funny, but she took that knee, obviously, getting blasted with the baton. And I'm just trying to make light of the situation because it seems there's a lot of darkness going on. Hey, by the way, let's get to football. It was a great weekend for football. The Saints, they came back from the dead. They won that game 34-13. They dominated. We're going to get into a lot of that coming up, I promise. LSU, well, they survived against a tough Syracuse team, 35-26. And Tulane, we're going to get into all this later. Trust me, had an exciting win over Army. 3 fourth-down conversions in the last drive, including a big key one at the end, and they beat Army 21-17. How about UL Monroe upsetting UL Lafayette 56-50? What a game between those directional schools. That used to be Northeast and Southwest, now ULL and ULM. Hey, by the way, speaking of upsets, Oklahoma State and Florida State, they took it on the chin. Oklahoma State got beat by TCU. Florida State 0-2. Wow, never think I'd say that for a while. They are now out of the top 25. Other teams that got scares include Clemson, who, by the way, was 7-7 going into the fourth quarter. They beat BC 37-7. Oklahoma, no one thought this would be close. That was a touchdown game over Baylor. Penn State, by the way, they saved their season on a last-second touchdown pass, the last play of the game, to beat game Iowa. By the way, Iowa comes in there, gamers. Hey, USC, they beat Cal in a very close one that many people thought that Cal should have won that game. Michigan had to have a big second half to get by Purdue, but the team that didn't have to have any last-second heroics, Alabama, don't tug on Superman's cape. Hey, don't wake the sleeping giant. Vanderbilt, you came in, you're in the CBS Game of the Week. You said, Bama, we can't wait for you. Well, you got a big load of it. 59-0. How about this stat? 38 first downs for Alabama, only 3 for Vanderbilt in the yardage. 677 to 78. CBS, I think you made a mistake putting that game on national TV. By the way, the NFL was just as crazy. The Jets, Bears, Jags, and Saints, well, they were all surprise winners in a lot of people's minds, but the Pats and the Packers were almost surprise losers. How about an old friend of ours from NOLA, Brandon Cooks, had a coming-out party with the game-winning touchdown in the waning moments against the Texans. And Aaron Rodgers, well, he had another great comeback. They were down big to, obviously, the Bengals, and he made that great pass to Jordy Nelson for the win. Those two are premier. How about this, though? Countdown CST, we've been doing their top 15 moments of the last 15 years. We got a block of 5 for you now, starting with number 9. After Hurricane Katrina, LSU's home opener, well, that was moved to Arizona State, and the Tigers pulled out a miraculous last-minute win. Moment number 8, playoff basketball comes to New Orleans as Chris Paul leads the Hornets to their first ever Southwest Division title. How great was that? Moment number 7, CST's first LSU event on the network was a classic for the LSU women's basketball team. They faced off against UC Santa Barbara in a top 20 matchup that finished as a triple overtime thriller. Number 6, Margaritaville, the post-game moments after Garrett Hartley kicked the New Orleans Saints into the Super Bowl against the Vikings. Who could forget it? And head coach and singer Jimmy Buffett celebrated live on CST. I think that should be number 1. And number 5, Saints Super Bowl parade. New Orleans celebrates with the Super Bowl parade, and CST goes along for the ride. That's the CST. By the way, we're going to get a lot of hoops. We've got some great guests. Stay tuned right here on Prime Time Sports. Coming up next. Welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hope you enjoyed that open, and I hope you, more importantly, you just enjoyed the nice sounds of John Papa Grow. Remember him? Formerly of Papa Grow's Funk. We're going to have some great tunes later in the show as well from different performers that have come here right here on Primetime Sports. My next guest has been on one time before, but I've known him, well, for about 20-something years. I'd say about 22, 23 years, because when I was in Atlanta, he would send me the footage of the great football players from the city of New Orleans and beyond that were on my show, Countdown to Signing Day, which is a national Fox show. But he's been a good friend for a long time. When I moved back 5 years ago, it's been good to see him more in person. Ed Daniels.
Scott,
welcome
what's up,
back
bud?
to the
How
show.
you doing?
WGNO Sports Director. And can I say this? You've been there for 25 years.
25 years and counting. 26 years, 26 seasons on our high school show.
26. By the way, and you know how much I love high school. Mm-hmm. Still tape it, still watch it religiously every week. Mm-hmm. That has to be a source of some pride for you because you guys do it and do it well.
Yeah, we work hard at it. You know, we've got a group of people who are heavily invested in the program. Not just me.
It's not just you. You do have
Right.
a big group of folks that you could tell. I mean, the behind-the-scenes stuff is huge. And you have my man, JT Curtis, who's been a great friend of this show. He comes on short notice a lot, and it's got to be a pleasure working together, huh?
Yeah, JT and I have been together since the beginning. You know, it's interesting. In the 80s, we talked about maybe doing this show one day. And finally, early in 92, I called him and I said, look, I think we're going to be able to make this thing happen. Are you interested? Yep.
So wait, I didn't realize he's been with you the entire time.
Oh yeah.
So tell the people real quick. This is interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
Like, how does he get from the game to the studio? Because are there ever times he can't make it?
Okay. Well, last week he called me. They were at Parkview Baptist.
Right.
And he called me at 9:52 and said, "I will make it."
Wow. In Baton Rouge.
In Baton Rouge.
Wow. And your show's.
And it goes on at 11.
11, that's what I'm saying.
So about 10:45, he walked into the office.
That's pretty amazing.
And
he was police escort down here?
Yes, and he was dressed.
He got a police escort.
And he dresses in the back seat of the car.
He is the best, man.
So, and look, you know, people, for years, I had people at the Louisiana High School Athletic Association complain to me.
Right, I was wondering
about he being
conflict of interest.
Right, him being on the show every week. And I said, you know, what coach would you know that would commit to that every week and get dressed in the back of a police car if need be to be there? And he understood the value of it. So JT, in many respects, has been ahead of his time, and on that he was.
I've told this to people because the record he is going to pass, the most wins of all time on any level of football. The guy that is ahead of him, Coach McKissick, who I got to know, he's in South Carolina.
Right.
But he always looked like your great-grandfather. JT, on the other hand, who basically is right there in the same wins, is about to pass him, and he looks like he could still suit up if he needed to.
Well, you know what? He makes 70, I believe, in December.
Unbelievable.
And he looks terrific. And you know what? I think a big part of it is the fact that he has worked hard all these years.
Yeah.
And I think the hard work has been good for him.
26 state championships. I know he's itching because it's been a couple years since he's got.
Right. Well, he's got a chance this year.
He's got a chance. There's some good football in the Catholic League, but I think you're right.
I think he's got a chance this year. I think Rommel has a chance. But of course, Evangel's had some injuries.
Yes.
But as far as being in Division I, which I can't stand, but anyhow,
right.
Division I, they are the chalk until someone beats them.
It'll be an interesting. I love this time of year. I really do, because it's not just the pro and the college level. I love the high school game, and I love to see how they progress. And you get the surprise winners like a Jesuit a few years ago. It was fun.
Sure.
And I love the public schools here too, man. I've really gotten into watching Carr and Landry Walker and all these great teams we have. And the football down here, and for those of you, because I've been around the country, it is some of the best there is in the entire country.
No doubt.
Here. All right, let's get into the Saints, because, I mean, a week ago, they were carcass on the side of the road for a lot of fans. Mm-hmm. Now, they'll do this once in a while. They'll come up and surprise you and not just win the game. They dominated the game pretty much as they were dominating the previous two.
Well, I mean, I think that people need to understand the nature of the NFL. It's one week it's feast, the next week it's famine. And there'll be some ups and downs all year. I thought they were somewhere around a 500 team before the season started. You know, Drew Brees, who's up on the screen now, has been outstanding. He's completed 68.5% of his passes, thrown 6 touchdowns and 0 interceptions.
That's the key stat, isn't it?
Yeah, and you know what? It amazes me. I'm at work sometimes and people tell me, Ed, we've got to get a new quarterback. And I was like, are you and I watching the same game? So it's an interesting dynamic. Now, the one thing I will say,
what you wish
right,
for.
right, exactly. The one thing I will say is this: last week, when everybody was throwing dirt on their grave,
right,
I did say this: this is the meat of their schedule. After this, they're past it. This 4-game stint to start the year.
Yeah.
And if they won one of those games and they were 1-3, they'd still have a chance.
Right.
Now, if they beat Miami, they're 2-2. Certainly, they have a chance in the NFL, where after week 3, you only have 2 undefeated teams. So,
and one of them shouldn't be Atlanta.
Right,
I'm
right,
sorry.
exactly,
I'm looking at
exactly.
You,
but looking at the relevance in the big picture here. Plus, the Saints are beat up right now. All right, they don't have their 2 starting offensive tackles.
No doubt, and that's huge.
They don't have Delvin Breaux.
They haven't
had Willie Snead, who's in this week. So, in that regard, I think it's not only who you play, but when you play them. And I think this was the best time of the year for teams to play the Saints. And the only comparison I can make is look at Green Bay. Their 2 tackles have been hurt, and Aaron Rodgers, they have struggled with protecting him.
Yes.
He's still been off to a pretty good start, but they haven't protected him as nearly as well as they can. And there was a huge difference in the Atlanta game on Sunday night a couple of weeks ago. So, I think the Saints have a chance to get better. It all depends on how much better their young players get.
Where do you put Breeze in a category when you're talking about, because the rest of the country, my brethren have friends all around the country, as you do in the media, and beyond, just friends. They laugh when I even mention Breeze in the same breath as Tom Brady and even an Aaron Rodgers. What would you say against them?
Well, I would certainly put Drew Brees in a category with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has won 1 Super Bowl, right?
Right.
Okay.
He's a lot younger, though. I think he's 5 years younger.
Yeah, he's 5 years younger, but until he does it again, Aaron Rodgers has won 1 Super Bowl. Drew Brees has won a Super Bowl. Drew Brees is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh, no doubt.
Now, Tom Brady, you have to put on a different level because he's won 5 championships, most by any quarterback.
But by that way of thinking, where do you put Dan Marino, who I think should be in the pantheon of quarterbacks as well?
Well, Dan Marino
he
was.
Won one.
The issue with Dan Marino is that, at the end of his career, he wasn't on very good teams. And the only way they even won or had a chance to win is when he was throwing the ball all over the place.
Right.
If you remember, I think Dan Marino's only Super Bowl trip was his rookie year.
Yeah.
And his first start as a pro was against the Saints at the Superdome.
You were there.
I was there.
By the way, this man's been to 45 Sugar Bowls. That is astounding. Hey, I got to ask you, though, Cam Jordan.
Right.
This guy seems to have matured, and he had a huge game against Carolina. How important is he to this team's success?
Well, he's vital to this team's success. He's their best player on defense, probably one of the few guys on defense, if they were on another team, could start for another NFL team.
But
look,
that is truth, right?
Cam Jordan had a very nice game on Sunday. The one thing I will say is, if you go look at the film on the sack, where he came off the corner, he was unblocked.
Right, he was unblocked.
The offensive tackle made a mistake, or somebody made a mistake in the blocking scheme, blocked down and doubled the defensive tackle, and he walked in clean and got the sack.
But what I do love about Cam is he is as good against the run that he is.
Oh yeah,
because there's not a lot of those sack guys aren't, and he plays the run very well.
Well, I equate him to a guy like, let's see, over the years for the Saints, Joe Johnson.
Nice call.
Joe Johnson was a very good pass rusher, but he was also stout against the run. He was a complete 4-down football player, and I think Cam Jordan is that kind of player.
Ingram, Peterson, Kamara, how do you see this shaking out, and do you like what you're seeing in this previous? No, you don't like it talked about.
No, I just think it's too many backs. I think one of the mistakes that the Saints have made and Sean Payton has made over the first 3 games is that Mark Ingram's not getting enough touches. I think Mark Ingram has when the Saints traded for him in the first couple of years, I was not sold on him, and I said that, okay? But I think Mark Ingram, along with this guy, Kamara, that ought to be your rotation. Because Mark Ingram last year had over 1,000 yards, averaged 5 yards a carry, and scored 10 touchdowns. And to me, he's a guy that has worked and improved and has turned into a really good player. And I think it's a mistake when he only touches the ball 11 to 15 times a game.
Well, on another station from yours, I do tape every show, by the way. I watch them all. But Jim Mora had some harsh words for Adrian Peterson. I don't want to get into this because I want to get some LSU and Tulane.
Right.
But he basically said he's washed up.
Well,
I thought that was a little harsh, but maybe.
I thought it was a little harsh too. And look, I don't have anything against Adrian Peterson. I just wouldn't have brought him here because, to me, Alvin Kamara is a guy who needs to be on the field, and certainly Mark Ingram needs to be on the field, who is one of the most complete players on your team. And you've turned him into a part-time player, and I think that is a coaching mistake.
Tigers, LSU. What's your take on this team right now?
Well, I mean, I think they're pretty good, but not great. Certainly not nearly as good as they were last year. Good thing for them is that the SEC is down. So they may win 7, 8, maybe they might, if everything rolled right for them, win 9 games.
If you had a gun against your head, you'd probably say 8-4?
8-4, I think so. But, look, let's be honest about it. Since 2011, the gap between them and the University of Alabama, in my opinion, has never been bigger.
It's big right now. It's
yes.
big. Tulane, I have to give them some props. That was a gutsy performance.
Right.
Man, I got to tell you, if you are a casual Tulane fan, you need to jump all on board. I love what I'm seeing from them.
Well, I mean, look, that was a great rally by Tulane against Army. Jonathan Banks did a tremendous job. He obviously can't run the ball very well. It's pretty obvious he has a rib problem. And but he got it done in the game against Army on the last drive, and they won. Now look, they're right where they were supposed to be, so they're 2-2.
Right.
So they've got to find a way to win 4 of their last 8, but it's not going to be easy.
I looked at the schedule yesterday. Tulsa is almost becoming a must-win.
Right.
I mean, and Tulsa has given them fits over the years. If Tulsa's 1-3, they can be had. I think this one's going to be pivotal.
Yeah, no question.
Last thing, real quick, any thoughts? I saw you at Media Day yesterday with the Pelicans. What do you think?
I'm not a buyer.
You're not buying in, okay.
No, I think if you look at the Vegas over and under total on the Pelicans, it's 39.5. I think that's accurate.
Okay, I thought I saw a total of 43, but that was a while ago, maybe before.
39.5. My question would be with them.
I'd take over.
Right. Well, I think it's going to be right around that number. My question with them is, okay, you've got the core 4. Who are your 3-point shooters? Sure. And who's your bench?
Well, your hope is that the guys that were covered on the 3 last year will be a lot more open because of what you got with Rondo and
still need knockdown shooters, okay?
But a couple of them may have more open shots. Yeah. Etuan Moore's been a 45% shooter. I'm hoping.
I'm optimistic. Look, I've never been a fan of the way they've assembled this team under Dell Demps. I think it's 2 years ago they were supposed to run up and down. Now they brought a guy in because they've got to run a double, a low-high post offense. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't think there's really been a plan. I think it's been a mishmash of things. And after this year, if it doesn't work out, what are they going to do next?
There you go, brother. Ed Daniels, he is the distinguished statesman of the city of New Orleans. And I mean, he's an Endymion rider. I see you at the ball every season. And I've got a great little gift certificate for
my friend.
And your lovely wife to go. And I'm going to put you on a wing. I know you've been here before. That one's kind of full.
That one's full? You want me to sign one up?
Yeah, man, sign up. That's our tradition. Okay. Ed Daniels. Check him out. News with a Twist in WGNO. That is ABC. That's Channel 26. And I do appreciate him every single time I see him. He used to do a radio show and now twice on the TV show. So thank you, Ed. Hey, coming up next, we're going to talk more Saints, more Tulane and LSU later in the show. I've got Chris Hagan from Fox 8 coming in. But next, this is our media-driven show. I told you we're going to go Pelicans. Media Day was yesterday. Scott Kushner coming up next right here on Primetime Sports. Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934. It is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At the mid-city lanes, the
Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open.
504. Welcome to New Orleans. Mr. Five-Star Hero. Welcome to New Orleans, the home of the Pelicans. Yeah, and I'ma show them who we better than the Pelicans. Pelicans, 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 Pelicans. Welcome to New Orleans, home of the Pelicans. City of New Orleans, let's show them who we better than. We better than the Rockets. I'm betting out of pocket. Take them to the lane and you know I'm not stopping. The fans just watch me. Got me feeling cocky.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. We're going to take a quick break from all the football. We'll come back with it later with Chris Hagan. But as you could tell from the music coming in from Five-Star Hero, we're going to talk some Pelicans. That's his Pelican anthem. He was on the show a few weeks ago. And none better than my next guest. I haven't had him on in a while, but he is the Pelicans beat writer for The Advocate. His name? Well, it's Scott Kushner. He's been on my radio show a bunch back when I was doing that, and a couple times already on this TV show. But now, Media Day was yesterday, as most of you know, for the entire NBA, but the Pelicans in particular. I saw him. I sat next to him at the press conferences.
How you doing, man?
And that's nice to be on the show. Usually I'm a lot more ready for the weeks before to have people guest, but I appreciate you coming in on short notice.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
What'd you take out of this Media Day press conference? I mean, you were in pretty much the front row sitting and listening to Dell, to Alvin, to AD, to Boogie, to Rajon, and that's when I had to go, so there might have been a few more.
A lot of guys. It was pretty much everyone.
But what'd you get out of this?
I got that they recognize the urgency that this season entails, which is good because they should know it, which is when Anthony Davis said, we got a year to figure this out. I think that was really honest of him.
Yeah.
Which I think you see a lot of guys often talk about. This is a longer process, and we've got to do this, and that. It's like, no, we got to win. We got to win right now. Like, they don't have time to build this thing. They have to win this year, or else the whole tenor of this franchise changes. And Anthony Davis knows his whole career changes.
Those are my shots. That's from my iPhone right there. No, but I'm going to say this. The thing Anthony said that struck me was that he was like, listen, we're playing for Boogie right now. Yeah. Basically, he's like, he knows that Boogie, if they have a bad season, he's going to go to greener pastures, and who could blame him? But he basically said, hey, it's not just necessarily playing for this year. We're playing to get Boogie enough wins to make him want to come back.
Exactly. And it's everyone. It's not – so certainly DeMarcus Cousins is the most important piece to get back. But Rondo's not coming back if they're not good either. And neither are any of these guys in these one-year deals who you could theoretically get back and run this back again, but they're all signed on for exactly 1 year. And that's Ian Clark, that's Tony Allen, Dante Cunningham. They have all these guys. This whole offseason was built, basically with the exception of the Drew Holiday extension, this whole offseason was built around 1 year contracts. And so you've built this thing to say, look, either this works right now or everything about this team is changing. Not to mention your general manager's in the last year of his deal, and your coach is on the last year of his deal. So
urgency is the word of the day.
They can very easily pull the Band-Aid off and change everything about this franchise without having to carry much expense.
The schedule makers don't do the Pelicans any favors, and as we know,
they rarely do.
With the injuries that they've had, I'm not using any excuses, but the injuries and the schedule combined, these starts have been not just poor to start this season, they've been abysmal. We're talking like 1-11, 0-8. What would happen if this team had, God forbid, that kind of start to the season?
There's a bit of a mixed message from Alvin Gentry about that on Monday, which was to say he talked about it first, that it's a marathon. It's 82 games. They all count the same.
Alvin Gentry.
Yeah. Okay. He basically said, it was like, look, and he's right. Everything he's saying there
We've
is
seen
accurate.
This look a lot since he's been here.
And everything he's saying is accurate. He's not wrong that, he's like, even Golden State had a 4-game stretch. They weren't very good. But then when you ask him how disastrous were those first, dozen games the last 2 years. Like, it killed us. It ended our season, essentially.
Yes.
They could never get back.
It was over.
And you saw the same thing with the Saints, which is they start badly,
Right.
and then they can't ever
keep
get
trying
back.
to catch up. And when they do catch up to 500, I'm talking about the Saints,
Yeah.
then it just goes in the toilet because you've used so much energy.
And when you're bad those first 12 games, to get back to 500 and crest over it, you have to be really good for a stretch. And they've never been really good for a
Alvin
stretch.
Gentry, I have to give more people. I've done this for 20 months now. I haven't had more interest in his interview than any other because people said, man, I saw a different side of Alvin that we usually see the prickly side after a loss. He's not happy.
Sure.
But he really is a delightful guy to be around away from the basketball court, right?
He's professionally, he's the easiest coach to get along with as far as after an interview, he'll hang out, he'll talk to you. I know about his life. He knows about my life. Like, those kinds of things. He's a very personable guy. It's very easy to tell why every single team that comes to New Orleans, everybody walks across that hallway to go talk to Alvin Gentry.
Yeah, he's
there's
respected.
players, coaches, GMs, everyone comes over to say hello to Alvin. They just like him. And so he's got a personality people gravitate to. It doesn't always come out when he's annoyed after games,
right?
And even before games, but it's certainly, I think you know it as well as anybody.
Well, that was my point because people were like, I saw a different side. I actually like him now. All the people that want to fire whoever's doing bad.
Yeah.
Well, they were like, I kind of like this guy. They're rooting for him is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
As far as this team goes, they do have the voodoo doll stuck syndrome where even this summer, man, you just saw Frank Jackson there. He's out for a while, the rookie. This guy, Solomon Hill, is out for the season. He's really the only true three you have on this team, in my opinion.
Sure.
How do you feel that slot? We know right now they kind of have a big four in a way. I'm not going to compare them to any of the real big threes or big fours out there. Yeah. Certainly not Golden State. But in a sense, they have four guys that I think you can rely on. Rondo, Boogie, and of course, Drew and AD. Mm-hmm. Those are starters.
Sure.
How do you feel that three spot?
I think it'll go night to night is how they'll start if they're playing a team with a really big wing.
Kind of like an alcoholic, huh?
I think they're just
going day to day.
Yeah, I mean, everything is just going to depend on how big is the wing that they have to defend, or is it going to be a smaller team? Because if it's a big team, they're going to have to play Dante Cunningham probably at that spot. And if it's a smaller team that they feel like they can take advantage of, they'll probably play Darius Miller there. And in certain nights, if they're playing a small team like Philadelphia or something, they might go out and play Etuan there.
Well, that surprised me yesterday because he did mention Etuan playing the three, and that would be real small ball if you did that because he's what, 6'4" at best?
Yeah, he's not big, and you'd essentially have to put Drew on the best perimeter ball handler on the other team, which is a tough ask for Drew, who's also not a huge guy.
No.
And so Solo did a lot last year. Solo had some moments where you just kind of went like this offensively. You're like, what is he doing? But defensively, he almost always, every minute he was on the floor, was covering the best scorer on the other team.
Well,
and their defense was a top 10 defense. So
by the way,
yeah,
the negative people out there, they went from 26th to 8th.
Now they replaced Ryan Anderson and Eric Gordon with Etuan Moore and Solomon Hill. There's really not a wonder it flipped from being a good offensive team to a good defense.
Right. Your offense suffered. So I'm trying to find positive.
They never mentioned that, but it's pretty obvious. Why
That's a good point. I never thought about it either, but I should have. Hey, let's talk about this, though. Everybody knows the Big Four. We talk about this ad nauseum, but let's talk about the other pieces and how they might fit, and how do you think they might get time, a la Instant Grits, Jordan Crawford, and some other guys on this team. Kind of fill in the rest of the team. And how do you see them fitting on this team and getting minutes, and what are they going to do well?
I think you're going to have to see Cheick Diallo get a handful of minutes down low. I think he's more likely to play than Alexis Ajinça.
I'm a fan, by the way, of Diallo.
He looked really good in the summer. He works as hard as anybody, and he's incredibly skilled.
Yes.
He's raw still, but he is very skilled and can do a lot more on the floor than I think a lot of guys, and is more versatile than Lexi is. And then I think you're going to see Jordan Crawford come off the bench and Etuan Moore come off the bench a lot and be relied on to score. And Ian Clark was a really good, underrated signing. That is a legitimate backup point guard.
I really love Ian Clark.
I think it's the best backup point guard this team has had in forever. I mean, maybe Jarrett Jack was slightly better when he was backing up Chris Paul, but other than that.
And you can actually move Ian around a little bit. I mean, he doesn't just have to be a point, in my opinion. I know he's size-wise, maybe so, but this guy...
He can play two a little bit.
And I love that he's got the pedigree, but the other... of a championship, I should say. But the team as a whole, I have to give Dell some credit here. And I know people are going to call me an apologist because I know there's been some moves that haven't worked out well. That's obvious.
Yeah.
But, man, guys like that, even Jordan Crawford bringing him in and getting some minutes, Tony Allen right here, he seems to bring in these bit players that are going to help the team. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for that part.
He is very good, and everyone you talk to on Airline will tell you the thing that they like the most about what Dell has done is finding talent under rocks. He's done really well scouting the D-League. I mean, look at a guy like Tim Frazier, who they were able to trade for.
I'm telling you, right.
They have been able to find guys underneath, the rocks.
Nobody cares
where
about
nobody sees. They've got a really
and
good.
And he credits himself for being that kind of player, and he looks for that kind of guy.
And they've got a great D-League scouting staff. They've got a good college scouting staff. They just don't draft very high very often, and they've made mistakes that are high-profile mistakes, like Omer Asik and Alexis Ajinça, and they've thrown big money at guys who have not deserved it in free agency.
Right.
His problem has been free agency, and it's nice to do the little things well, but you got to do the big things well too.
But
and outside of Anthony Davis, at this point, what can you say was a big thing he's done well? Drew Holiday's, you don't know yet.
And New Orleanians hated when I said this when I lived in Atlanta and I was on radio shows here all the time, but this is not a market that's going to attract people. Anthony Davis has made it that way, where Boogie came because of AD. He got traded. But Rondo's not here without those guys.
Agreed.
Point being is, like, the city itself, we love it. It's the greatest city in the world, in my opinion. But for NBA players, it's not the attraction. So a lot of times I feel like he's got to throw that extra couple million out to get the guy like a Solomon Hill to say, or even back when Tariq Evans, he's like, oh my God, I can't pass this money up, just to get him to come here. And I only have a little bit of time. Could you speculate on that, or you think I'm just crazy?
No. I think certainly it's harder here than it is in a top 10 market or a team that has done really well.
San Antonio,
they could easily turn that by being good. Like, teams aren't worried about markets. These guys aren't worried about market size as much as they are a team that looks well organized. And right now, for the last decade, the Pelicans don't look very well organized. And that is what they have to change. And they can change it this year. They can be good this year. They've got the talent to do it.
Scotty Kushner, you've got the talent too. Skilled but raw. I will call him that as well. I got a big guffaw out of him. I want to thank him. Hey, you're on a football, but now you're full-time hoops. I'm going to get you right here with Karl Malone.
Oh, there you go.
WLAE. We'll get you on the media wing, though.
My signature will be smaller than theirs.
Down here.
They've got a whole panel on there.
Yeah, they got panels. That is Scott Kushner. Cannot thank him enough. Hey, we took a break from football, but we're going to get right back into it. I told you, this is my media show. I only do this a little bit. I did it last week and this week, but we're going to go back to those coaches and players coming up next week. But I wanted to get the information highway going, so we're going to go back to football. Chris Hagan from Fox 8 coming up next. We're going to talk some more Saints, LSU, Tulane, and maybe a little more. We'll be right back on Prime Time. Welcome back to Primetime Sports, and sometimes they say you save the best for last. I'm saying that because this is his first time. He is an anchor over at Fox 8, and he was up in Baton Rouge, but he's a local, went to Slidell High School and LSU. His name is Chris Hagan. You see him on that great sports team with Wyan Kincaid, obviously Sean Fazan, and Garland Gillen, and he is the newest member of this group, but it's been a couple years now. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here, and I just love being back in New Orleans and getting to talk the teams that I grew up watching.
Well, let's kind of give a quick background overview. It's your first show, and I like to do that with the first-time guest. You obviously, I just said you're from Slidell High. You went to LSU. Did you stay in Baton Rouge and just start working at TV? Because I know you came from WAFB with our boys Jacques Doucette and Steve Snyder.
Well, actually, after I graduated from LSU, I went up to Joplin, Missouri, and I worked there for a couple of years, covering some smaller teams, but they had some Louisiana guys up there too, and then I came back down to Baton Rouge, covering LSU, Southern Saints, then made the switch on over to New Orleans, and My parents still live on the North Shore, so they're obviously glad to see a little bit more of me, and I'm glad to be back in the Big Easy.
You're only 28, okay? So I'm trying to get the years down. You were in Joplin. Did you go straight into TV right out of college? And you got a gig as an anchor?
Yeah, I went straight into TV. I was anchoring weekends and reporting in Joplin, Missouri, right out of college.
Where is that exactly?
It is, so they call it the Four States area because it's...
Is that the boot thing?
No, it's the Kansas side. So it's Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas.
Okay.
And it's in that bottom southwest corner of Missouri. So about 2 hours from Lawrence, Kansas. So I did a lot of Kansas Jayhawks.
Well, for basketball, that'd be great.
Dude, perfect. It is like Tiger Stadium for basketball.
It certainly is. I actually went to the Midnight Madness 2 years ago because, unfortunately, I had a lot of Kansas football games I had to do 2 years ago, and we've stepped that up. But Kansas basketball is unparalleled.
Oh, it's unreal, and it's quite an experience. I went to a Kansas State game, and I'll never forget it.
Well, let's get right to it. I mean, the Saints, last week, if you're a local sports fan here, it was a rough Monday. This week, everybody's got a little extra bounce in their step. Okay, not just the Saints winning on Sunday, Tulane winning in exciting fashion, and LSU, well, at least they got the win against a team that I don't think many people around here think is that good, but I actually follow Syracuse a good bit because I follow the ACC. They've got a good offense. I knew they were going to score, but they got the win. But let's start with the Saints. Were you surprised at all at the outcome of this game? Be honest.
I was surprised at how dominant the Saints were in that game. Now, that was a game certainly they had a chance to win because you look at the Panthers missing Greg Olsen and they're a little banged up, especially losing Kelvin Benjamin early. You felt like things could kind of shift the Saints' way. But to go in there and play with a comfortable lead for most of that second half and really dominate the way they did, I am a bit surprised. Both sides of the ball played extremely well, and being down Marshawn Lattimore and Sterling Moore, I didn't give that Saints secondary much of a chance, even against a Cam Newton who's not the same, but they played great football.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody, I was trying to let fans realize, hey, listen, it was at Minnesota on a Monday night. That defense is stifling. You had a rookie left tackle, and then you go in and play an angry Patriots team. So it's never really as bad as you think it is, and it's usually not as good as you think it is either. But you mentioned the point with Olsen being out. Obviously, when Kelvin Benjamin went down early, I was thinking, okay. And then the key part to me was when they held them to 3 after literally just getting the ball shoved down their throat for 9 minutes. And then you're like, this is going to be another long day. The defense can't stop anybody. But they held them to 3. And that's when I'm like, you know what? If they can put some points on the board, they got a shot. What were your thoughts when that happened?
Well, I think that was a strong statement they came out and made. And then you look at Ken Crawley, and now fans can really point to Ken Crawley should be on the field.
Right.
That was a guy those first couple of weeks we saw him in camp. We talked about him so much in training camp doing reports that Ken Crawley was having this great camp, and all of a sudden he's a healthy scratch the first 2 games, and Devontae Harris is out there getting torched against the Vikings and Patriots. And so it's good to see him back and good to see him get his moment to show what he can do. And, I think the Saints had a great game plan. Obviously, the Panthers, they force-fed Christian McCaffrey. And if you had him on your fantasy football team, he went off.
Especially PPR.
Yeah. Oh, I think it was a 20-plus point performance in PPR leagues. But, they weren't going to let Christian McCaffrey alone beat him. And, when Benjamin went down and Olsen wasn't there, they didn't have their red zone targets. They really locked up in the red zone, and, it did the Saints very well.
I was impressed because you saw a lot of the swarming that you saw in the preseason on the defense. Yeah, they let Christian McCaffrey catch the ball. For the most part, they contained him. I mean, he had a couple of nice plays, but they kept it in front of them as opposed to letting it behind like they have. Do you think having Cam Newton as opposed to, say, a Tom Brady and a hot Sam Bradford, because Cam's not used to being a pocket passer. He's always beating you with his legs as well. And when he's kind of made a point, or the team has made a point to not let him run as much, they want to keep him healthy. Do you think that helped him out?
I think it certainly did. And this is a team they've seen Cam Newton for a number of years now. They know what he can do, and when you take that scramble factor away that he's done a good job beating the Saints with the last couple of years, he's a different quarterback. He's a little banged up with his shoulder. Maybe some of the accuracy's not there. I mean, there were throws, quick hooks, a couple balls over the top. His receivers were there. He wasn't able to get him the ball, and then the P.J. Williams interception was a straight read. I mean,
so huge.
You see Cam Newton cock back like that, you know where he's going with the ball. That was probably a film study interception there. He just knew where it was going, and he made a great break on the ball. So I think that certainly went a long way when you're not facing that Brady who's a pocket passer. You're not facing a Sam Bradford who is very accurate despite some of the issues he's had over the years. Cam Newton wasn't himself, but good Cam or bad Cam, it's a win. The Saints took advantage of it and came away with the
you mentioned the Brady, which makes me think of the Patriots, and I was looking at all the team stats, which I do every week, and the Patriots are way ahead in number 1 in offense, but they are now they're number 32 in defense and everything, which is interesting to me because it can be done. You can't have a bad defense and win. The Saints haven't had that formula lately and won too much. I mean, they've used it, but the defense this week was a huge improvement. But do you think coming up in the next few weeks that they can continue this against Miami and obviously after the break against the Lions?
Well, I think a big thing for this defense is being able to see their hard work rewarded. They had a great preseason, had a great camp. They had a tough few weeks to start. But
it's huge.
Now that you come out and you see that the work's paying off, that the scheme works, that you can go out and have that success, I think they can build on it. It certainly helps to get the Dolphins, who just came off at a terrible offensive performance against the Jets. It can be another confidence builder, momentum booster for the Saints. Now, after that bye week, it's going to be tough when you've got the Packers and Lions.
No, it's hard.
So, there's some great quarterbacks. There's great quarterbacks all over this league that you're going to have to be able to stop.
But that's some of the best right there.
Yeah, but it helps that Saints defense to get a win under their belt and hopefully get healthier. You get Marshawn Lattimore back. He has been by far, I think, the brightest spot of that defense with what he's been able to do and lock up Brandon Cooks in week 2.
And the Saints, if I'm not mistaken, have 0 turnovers. I know Drew Brees has 0 interceptions to 6 touchdowns. That has been huge for this team because it seems like they're always losing the turnover battle. They come out 3-0 ahead this week. I mean, that's been huge for this team.
Yeah, you stay on the positive side of that,
right,
and you're going to win games. It's not just not having turnovers. It's getting those 3 turnovers that they had against the Panthers. And credit Marcus Williams. Credit Kenny Vaccaro for bouncing back. Yeah, Marcus is a stud, living up to everything he did in college, being a ball hawk and that center fielder who's everywhere he needs to be. And then credit P.J. Williams for making a great break on the ball. Those turnovers and getting the ball back to Drew Brees and the Saints offense, when they're clicking, there's nothing better. That's what that 2009 team fed off of.
Yeah, they were daggers for Carolina this past week. But you know what? Hey, as far as moving forward, let's talk a little bit about LSU because, listen, this is not a championship team. We look at this team, even the most optimistic will be like, maybe they're playing for next year. But what do you think is the ceiling for this squad right here?
I think the ceiling right now is probably 9 wins, 10 wins if you're really good and win some games. Look, I said 10 wins at the beginning of the season. I don't think that's going to hold up right now just because of the way that the offensive line is played. And, as much as the defense has been pushed around because they're young. I don't think it's anything to do with necessarily talent on that defensive side of the ball. They're just going to have to do a little bit of learning. And, Arden Key hasn't really been what he was last year playing at a heavier weight. And so it's going to get a lot tougher. You struggled against Mississippi State a lot. You struggled
is putting it kindly.
Yeah. You struggle against
the struggle was real.
The struggle was against Syracuse too, which a lot of people didn't expect them to struggle against.
I'm more encouraged after Syracuse. I mean, maybe I follow them a little bit. I know they were going to score. They put yards on the table and they always score points, and that didn't bother me. But the week before, that hurt. And then especially seeing Mississippi State just get blown out by Georgia, that's what made me realize, okay, this team is going to fight for maybe 5-3 at best in conference, in my opinion. I think that would be a successful season.
Yeah, 5-3 would definitely be a successful season with that schedule they have and just the fact that there's not going to be a let-up. After Mississippi State came Syracuse and comes Troy.
And then it gets real.
It's 7 straight. It starts at Florida, which is a game that everyone's had circled.
It's so key. And it's key for any success that they might have.
It's key for this team proving that they can play in the SEC, proving that to themselves that they can play in the SEC this year. And you never thought you'd say that about LSU, that they might struggle in the conference so much, but that's where they're at right now because of the lack of depth on the offensive line and that unit not being able to get it done. I mean, look, you mentioned that Syracuse can put points on the board, but was Syracuse's defense really that intimidating coming in? Did you think Syracuse...
No. Their defense, no.
Yeah, did you think Syracuse would have Danny Etling running for his life?
I did not.
No. And so when you play a defense like Florida and really any SEC team that builds their defensive line and builds their front seven, It's going to be really tough for LSU to move the ball, especially when they're keying in on Darius.
And why
Geis.
do I have a feeling when they play Florida that Jim McElwain, who, by the way, hates LSU, is going to have his star running back and receiver probably come back for that game because he's been out all season with suspensions. That's Antonio Callaway, the receiver, and, of course, Jordan Scarlett. I have a feeling that they'll miraculously make it back for that game in early afternoon.
You know they'll be ready, and you know they'll be out there on the field because that's become a rivalry. I don't think LSU-Bama is a rivalry right now. Bama has mopped them the last couple of years.
But Bama still takes their off week before LSU still.
They do.
Until they stop doing that, I'll
It's smart because they know they're going to get LSU's best shot, but I think LSU's biggest rival right now is Florida. And I can tell you that going back to Tim Tebow when I was in school there, that was the game. You got up for
2007,
Bama,
the greatest game.
but you get up for Florida.
Period.
And so I think that's a game after last year coming in the Tiger Stadium and beating them after all that back and forth after the postponement of the game, it being Florida's homecoming game this year. I think that's a big game that everyone's going to have circled.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the Tulane Green Wave. What a big, big win. What a gutsy call 3 times to go a 4th down at the end, especially at the very end when they went 4th down. They could have tied it with a field goal. What does this mean for this program?
That's a huge win, and I think for a team that's come out and said they want to be bowl eligible, look, they play in a tough division of that American Athletic Conference, so the wins aren't going to be easy. Army was one that they had to have to get that bowl eligibility that their goal is. And you mentioned it. That is a gutsy drive that they had. 4th and 7 inside your own 30, still with more than 4 minutes on the clock, so you could punt and hopefully get the ball back. But I think it's the right call because the previous Army drive went for more than 8 minutes.
Right.
They had the ball for more than 39 minutes the entire game. And so if you punt that ball with 4 minutes left, you're not getting it back. Because, Army, if they get a 4th and 3 or 4th and 4, they're going to go for it to try and ice the game because that's how they've been playing all season long and all game long. So outstanding performance, and you can't say enough about Jonathan Banks taking that shot to the ribs on the last drive and then still being able to come back in and finish the drive with a touchdown. Outstanding.
By the way, for those of you who don't know, Jonathan Banks, a former Kansas State player, he is now the quarterback for the Green Wave, and he is bringing excitement back to Claiborne Avenue. By the way, here's a little something for thank you. You were a West Banker for a bit. I mean, I know you're not growing up and bred there like Marlon Favorite, but you did live there. Now you're uptown. I got a place for you in your neighborhood. It's called Chez de la Chez.
Awesome.
It's right there on Maple between Carrollton and Broadway. Thank you so much.
Thank you, man.
And we have a tradition. Since you did go to LSU, we will sign this. I got a media wing right here. I got a nice little spot for you right in here.
Oh, yeah, it looks perfect.
So I appreciate you. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
You be good. And by the way, I got to thank everybody. It's been a fun show. Hey, I don't usually do all media shows. I did it 2 weeks in a row because I wanted to give you the information. Last week it wasn't good. This week, well, it's a little more encouraging. So I want to thank all of my guests today. But also, hey, I can't get it done with the people that are behind the scenes. They're the ones that make it shine. Of course, Will Hill, my producer. I appreciate you so much. Hey, Jim Dotson. How about Ron Yeager, those guys? Hey, Jay Smooth. That's his name's Josh Smith. Love what he does over there. Naila is taking over today on audio. Appreciate her. The Redhead Tsunami. Peter Drennan. Thank you all. And CST, I appreciate you as well. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, we might have a little less miles for you right here on Primetime Sports. Although our name is Lucy's Retired Surfers Bar and Restaurant, there's nothing tired or retired about anything we do. Meet Me at Lucy's has been our slogan and battle cry for nearly 3 decades in New Orleans. Located in the heart of the Warehouse District, Lucy's has truly been the destination spot for nearly every occasion. Whether it's happy hour after work, before and after Saints and Pelicans games, or just a delicious bite to eat at all hours, Lucy's is the perfect place to meet up, hang out, and unwind for a great time. And while you're there, you should try one of our signature surfing cocktails, like the Shark Attack or Blue Whale. And for the truly courageous, our famous Scorpion Tequila Shot. Remember, Meet Me at Lucy's is our slogan, but don't forget to bring your favorite pooch, because our lifeguard chair is always open.